Okay, I'd like to call to order the Madison Fire District's regular meeting, May 20th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Can we get a roll call?
Mr. Adams.
Here.
Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Gauntner.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Vest.
Here.
Mr. Wayman.
Here.
If we could, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move into the regular session. I believe the first thing on there should be the minutes. And do we have a motion for those?
You have that motion. Mr. Vest, this is Mark Vest. You have that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vest. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman. Ken Gauntner.
Mr. Gauntner. And a roll call?
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Gauntner.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Vest.
Yes.
Mr. Wayman.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have the agenda right in front of me, but I would say the next thing is probably the bills and payroll.
No.
No? Okay.
Special meeting 428. Minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 28th, 2020 special meeting.
Need a second?
Bob Lee, seconds.
Mr. Lee, second. Roll call?
Mr. Gauntner.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Vest.
Yes.
Mr. Wayman.
Abstain.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
What do we have showing next?
Bills and payroll, Jay.
Bills and payroll. Thanks. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, so someone's gonna have to read that off.
Do you want me to, or go ahead, Ken?
You want me to go ahead and do it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks,
All right.
Joanne.
The April
Or check your
bills
phone.
are $52,808.56. The tax collection fee was $883.28. Payroll was $146,149.72, for a total expenditure of $199,841.56.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for the
Mr.
bills and payroll.
Mr. Anderson, first, we have a second.
This is Mark Vest. You have a second?
Discussion? No questions or anything? Okay.
Nope.
Roll call. Roll call.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Gauntner.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Vest.
Yes.
Mr. Wayman.
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
You ready for me to do the next part?
Yes, please. Thank you.
The next one is our April fund summary report. We started April with $4,416,558.28. Our month-to-date revenue was $185,704.02. Part of that month-to-date revenue was the transfer in from the general fund to the debt fund of $78,542.60. That's what made up the $185,000. Our year-to-date revenue is $2,288,340.72. Our month-to-date expenditures was $278,384.16. The other reason that one was up again was because I transferred out the $78,542 from the general fund to the debt service. Our month-to-date expenditures is $1,174,976.60. So we're starting May with $4,323,778.14. Also, so you know, any questions on that part?
No.
The chief and I discussed this tonight just before the meeting too. He's got a special presentation that he's trying to shorten up the way we review the budget. So he said he's going to do a small presentation that he'll handle that part on there. Another good note, so you know, I got an email from UAN today. They are waiving our third quarter fees, which is $948. And it also looks like towards sometime this year, we will be getting a new computer coming to us on there. Another item you'll see later on down in the agenda under new business is a resolution asking your approval to allow me to accept $17,909.53. And this is the HHS stimulus payment from the CARES Act. On there is some restrictions on it, like we can't apply for other items. The chief and I are looking at using it all for PPE. And then I have to do a report, and we got to keep a log for them ready to go on it. And if we don't use it, we have to refund what we don't use.
Any questions for Joanne?
I'm sorry. I didn't quite understand that.
I know he was talking about not understanding something.
That's what, yeah, I didn't catch what.
I believe that was Mr. Wayman, wasn't it?
I didn't understand what the dog was saying.
And then one other item we're going to have, somehow we got to figure for our June 17th meeting, our public hearing, we'll need that to schedule for the preliminary 2021 budget that we have to the county. So we'll have to get that.
The dog wants to sit on a fire engine.
Okay.
So I don't know if we need a motion to set that time just before the meeting or.
Probably do.
On
Yeah.
Casey, don't you think so?
Yes.
Yes, we've done that in the past so that there's appropriate notification to the public.
Eddie barking.
Well,
You
Mr.
have
Chairman,
that motion.
I can make a motion. I'll make a motion to set the public hearing date for the, I guess it's not the real budget, but the
Preliminary budget.
proposed 2021 budget want to do it right at 7 o'clock?
Yeah, it won't take you that long.
Okay. Well, my motion will be for 7 o'clock at the June meeting.
We have a second.
This is Mark Vest. Do you have a second?
Was that a second by Mr. Vest?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Have a roll call?
Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee. Mr. Vest.
Yes.
Mr. Wayman.
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Gauntner.
Yes.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Joanne. Was there any other questions for Joanne?
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Vest. Yes, I have a question for Joanne.
Yes.
Question for Joanne would be your line item for the COVID-19 and what the costs have been to this date. Do you have anything on that?
Yes, we've done approximately almost $11,000.
Okay.
And we are actually using the EMS code 2081, the equipment. I don't have the, sorry, I didn't put the spreadsheet right in front of me to pull it up.
Okay.
But that's, we do have, yes. And we're keeping copies of everything too. In a
Okay,
separate
great.
folder.
Very good. Thank you, Joanne.
Yep.
I don't have anything else.
Nobody else?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Next portion should be what? Right, public portion. Did we have any questions or anything sent in?
I think
No.
so.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I have not received any via email as we advertised.
Okay, thanks, Chief. I guess next portion would be the legal counsel. Ms. Dane.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I did go ahead and prepare a draft of the agreement to keep things moving forward on the bathroom renovation project. My understanding is that perhaps the chief would like to address the board regarding our ability to move forward on that just financially, and we'll be getting input from the board. So the next step would just be to finalize the negotiations with Mr. Gates on that contract, just to make sure that he's in line with the payment and the scheduling and that sort of thing. But I held off on engaging in that discussion just until we had our meeting tonight. But I'm ready and prepared to move forward should the board decide to do so. So other than that, I did hear from Attorney Ermish regarding the workers' compensation matter. I will be keeping the board updated on that. I figured it'd probably easier just for me to send a quick little email to you instead of going into an executive session with all the difficulties that would entail in this virtual meeting tonight. So look for that in your inboxes. But other than that, that's all I have to report tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Dane. Any questions for Mrs. Dane?
No.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Gautner.
I was going to ask you if you wanted to talk about that issue with Mr. Gates or not right now, or wait.
So I expressed my concerns, I think, to a collective of people in lieu of the current climate, without knowing the ramifications of unemployment, not knowing what kind of delinquency we might see in taxes. I can tell you that we do have some decrease in our EMS revenue. And knowing that Mr. Gates had estimated this at a $60,000 to $70,000 job. I also know that we've had conversations about the driveway out here at Station 3, which is in need of repairs. My only recommendation is, you know, I'm at a point personally where I think it's need versus want. And while I think we do need the bathroom, we've lived in that bathroom for the better part of 30 years. I personally would recommend that we perhaps consider putting that on hold till the fall. We have the plans, we have a construction manager. In the next 3 months or so, we're going to have an idea what that revenue looks like. Because, I mean, who knows, we could be down 50% of the second half. And if that's the case, I certainly would hate to see us invest in a new bathroom while we reduce staffing to balance a budget. So my recommendation to the board would be that we consider postponing moving forward until after the time that we see what our collection may be, and then prioritize where we're going to put our dollars. I think the staff understands. I've talked to several of them. I don't think that there's any pushback from them. I think there's an understanding because they also have to understand that a big commitment on the bathroom today may mean a reduction of a person as part of the duty crew. You know, somehow we got to make sure we're balancing the budget. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to field questions.
Stacy, if I could ask a question of you, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be in our best interest to at least go ahead and lock in Mr. Gates, the construction manager, because we did advertise this quite a while ago, and at least we could get him hired and on board so that when we're ready to pull the trigger, he's there. Because I'm wondering if we wait a long time, then I don't know that there's any statutory time limit on this, but we did advertise the position or advertise for a construction manager. So is there any downfall to at least locking him in as the manager, and then come fall, I'm hoping we're going to be able to pull the trigger and just, things, have him prepare the specs and be ready to go out for bid.
Right, and that's one of the things that I was thinking about in discussing things with Mr. Gates, is to kind of feel him out, make sure that he's willing and able to meet or wait a little bit longer to put it out for bid and to actually get the project started. I mean, he gave us his proposal on fees of $2,000. I don't think that that's going to change. So I think that we can continue to negotiate that contract and then just make sure that he and we are on the same page as to that schedule needs to be set out in the future, and that when we're ready to go, then he should be in line and ready to go with us.
Well, not only that, that would give him time to put together, because he does have to do some written specifications to bid this out. So it would give him time to put those specifications together, and then when we're ready to pull the trigger, he's ready to go.
Right.
Okay, if that was Ken Gautner talking, I agree with Ken. I think we should be ready to go as soon as we have a better understanding of what our second and third quarter revenue is going to be.
Yeah, it just makes a lot of sense, Bob. I think be ready to go. I'm hoping that maybe the collection, the taxes in July is not going to be too bad. We know that in a really good year, 95% is the best that the county ever collects. So if we come in anywhere around 90%, I think we're going to be doing real good, and we'll be okay. But I hate to keep putting this off. I know, Chief, you said you guys have dealt with it for 30 years, but it really isn't. It isn't a great working situation, and if we can maybe get lucky enough to collect enough money in July, we can still maybe do this in maybe October, something like that. That's my.
And it'd be a good inside job in the wintertime, and again, I think it's just delayed, not necessarily tabled.
Yeah.
I have a question. This is Mark Vest. I have a question for the chief. And you had made mention of the concrete on Station 3. Were you proposing to move forward with that project and take the restroom project and make that kicked out farther, or were you taking both projects and moving them out to fall or latter?
Actually, we haven't gotten any proposals yet, but I know the bathroom was the priority. One of the other things that we were discussing was looking at the driveway, talking about how we could repair that. And I kind of agree with what Mr. Gautner says. We can still explore the options. I think the bathroom is the priority. Excuse me. And I think just knowing what the funding is really going to direct us where, excuse me, where we go. So I think driveway number 2 somewhere down the line, bathroom number 1 as soon as we know our finances.
Okay, sounds like we're all on the same page. Thank you. Oh, give me a.
So, well, should we? So we instruct Stacy to go ahead and continue to negotiate with Mr. Gates, so we can come up maybe by next month, have something ready to enter an agreement with him on.
I agree.
I agree.
This is Bob Lee. I agree.
Okay.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear from Mr. Lee and Mr. Wayman.
Did you need to hear from me?
Well, just the fact if you're okay with us moving forward in the direction that the chief is talking about.
This is Bob Lee. I agree.
Okay.
I'm on board with the whole thing.
Okay.
Very good. Sounds like everybody's on board with that.
Thank you. The next thing on your agenda is committee reports.
Any committee reports?
Mr. Chairman, I have no committee reports for you.
Okay. Okay. Next thing should be what? Old business? Anything
Correct.
there? Anything there? No.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for Mrs. Dane. Did you hear anything from the attorney regarding the situation that workers' comp situation at all?
Yes, I did. And as I indicated, I'm going to send you a quick
Oh.
email so we don't have to go into executive session to discuss it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you did say that. I apologize.
It's okay. Rather be on the same page. Nothing alarming if that puts you to rest.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, any other old business? Okay, new business.
So the first thing under new business is resolution 20-11. That's the resolution that's going to accept a donation from Joseph M. Pavlovic in the amount of $25.00. And this is for key lock purchases. Joanne can speak more to that if anyone has questions, but that's the resolution.
I'll make the motion on resolution 20-11.
Mr. Anderson, a second.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that second. Pete Wayman.
Mr. Wayman, second. Roll call.
Mr. Vest,
Yes.
Mr. Wayman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Gontner,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next resolution is resolution 20-12. This is a resolution accepting all funds received through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act, and authorizing the fiscal officer to accept, expend, and account for the use of said funds in compliance with applicable regulations, including 42 U.S. Code 601D, Section 5001.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, 20-12.
Mr. Anderson first. We have a second.
This is Mark Vest. I will make the second.
Mr. Vest, second. Roll call.
Mr. Wayman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Gontner,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Vest.
Yes.
One minor note, so you know, I will complete the paperwork tomorrow for that.
Thank you, Joanne.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
before we move on, I'd like to have you guys keep in the back of your mind for June. Chief Fires, or Chief Baker is up for evaluation. So we're going to have to keep that in the back of mind, get that as soon as we can, get that going for him.
Okay. You want to use the same evaluations that we've been using? Okay.
Yeah, everybody should have it. If you don't have it, please let me know and I will send you a copy of it.
Okay.
Or I'll send it to Stacy and then she can disperse it however you want to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Or I'll even hand deliver it for you if you need me to.
Stacy, when would we think we would want to get this done? Any ideas? I mean, you got a lot going on. When would you like us to?
It's up to the board. As soon as people want to set deadlines, as long as we reach those deadlines, then I can quickly turn around the compilation and the summary of everything and we can meet with Mr. Baker.
Well, today's the, but maybe we would give about 2 weeks to do it and that way give you plenty of time before the next meeting.
Yep.
Anybody else? What do you got? What, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? What do you want? Mr. Gartner, you have any ideas?
Well, Max, I was thinking you want to do this before the next meeting, correct?
Correct,
Or
sir.
by the next meeting.
Correct.
Well,
By the next meeting.
today's 20th of May. Maybe
Right.
we should see. I mean, if you could get a copy of that in my box at the township, I can stop by and pick it up. If we, what day is June 1st? I don't have a calendar in front of me.
June 1st is a Monday.
Monday,
The
yeah.
10th would be the Wednesday before our next meeting. That would give the board members 3 weeks to get them to me.
Let's do that. I think that's
Hey.
fair.
Max, this is Bob Lee. Would you send me an email copy of the evaluation?
Yes, sir, I will do that.
Thank you.
And Max, this is Mark Vest. I would like the same, please.
Yes, sir. I'll
And
tell you what, I'm just gonna resend it to everybody. How's that?
That would be good.
Perfect.
Good idea,
Okay.
man.
All right.
Now, one other thing I have, the problem line where we could have, and if we are in 3 weeks here, and we start our next meeting, and how do we do an executive session with this format?
He can do it. He can put us in our own rooms, take everybody out. You know, the rest of the public, we can go into our own room here. I believe he can do it. I know they can do it in Zoom, and they should be able to do it in here.
Yeah.
Well, we have one problem there.
What's that?
Our IT guy is still there, and he's not authorized to be in executive session.
Yeah, but we can invite anybody we want.
We
Mr.
can-
Vest, I can actually set up, Mr. Vest, I can set up a secondary link for the board to go into for an executive session, where essentially you all can enter in there. There's a controlled access. So we can have some dialogue on how to get that set up and kind of go through a trial run if we need to.
And we can also invite who we want to into that also.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, Mark, we could have I guess his name's Sean. We can have him sit in. As Max said, you can have anybody in executive session you want.
Well, that's very true.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with it. Okay. Yeah, this is not an issue with trust for you, Sean. It's just a confidentiality issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And then also, I want to make sure that with Stacy that we would be able to comply with all state regulations in order to move forward with that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I had in reference to the chief in the new business. If there's anything else, I don't know.
And just with reference to the evaluations, you can either email them to me, or I do have a Dropbox at my office. If you want to drop it off anytime, even if it's around, you know, not normal business hours, that secure box is always there for you to drop off paperwork if you need to. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any
And
other?
then there is no other new business on the agenda, so the next item would be the chief's report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I apologize. I didn't get the chief's report necessarily done in a timely fashion like I was hoping, but I also changed the format a little bit. I talked to Joanne, and one of the things that I'm trying to do is decrease redundancy and repeating information. So actually what I'm going to do to make it easy is I'm just going to show my screen, and I'm going to share with you the chief's report. And this is available to you guys. It's in the drive now. But essentially it starts out, and I know this is probably small. You tell me how big you need it. This is the budget report as we've normally had. Just within the budget, I know that Joanne had mentioned it's balanced pretty well. There's two areas that are somewhat concerning, but not a big deal. The first is sick time. I'm not sure if the board's aware yet, but one of the things I was going to let you know is we do have another injured worker off. Firefighter Hallquist, who had the medical problem and had to retire prematurely, was off our books April 1st. I'm sorry, May 1st. And then we also had one other firefighter who had a back injury that's been off. So one of the areas, and I don't know how well y'all can see it on your screen, but one of the areas where we're significantly off on our budget is sick time. We're at 71.4% of our budgeted sick time. And again, the rationale behind this is nobody anticipated having two career firefighters be off. Essentially, one of them was off every day this year. The second thing that's off when you look at the line item on the budget is our health savings account.
Chief, excuse me, could you click it up one more notch larger? It'd be perfect,
Yeah.
I think. One more notch.
Oop.
That's good. That's great. Thank you.
No problem. The second area is a little hard to see that I have highlighted here is the health savings account. And again, we missed on the budget there slightly, and the reason we missed is because in January, firefighter Hallquist was on board as a career fireman. He was given his HSA, as everybody is. Shortly into the year, suffered a medical problem, was off on leave, and ultimately ended up retiring. We then ended up hiring, as you guys know, firefighter Mike Brush. So as a full-time employee, we had to fund his HSA as per contract. So essentially, we missed there because a lot of where we're off is the not anticipating losing people at the rate at which we're losing people. Otherwise, if you go through the budget, we're relatively sound. We're on pace. Our salaries, we have had some scheduled overtime of late. We did go, if you recall, we bumped back up to that minimum of 6, which is where we were a couple years ago. I'd like to keep that as long as we can keep that. That bumping us up to 6 and having an unforeseen injury and then having 8 people off on leave at one time did precipitate some overtime. But the good news is we're at 30.6% of our salary through the first 4 months. So we're under budget. What I also did is I used to have the second sheet that had plenty of graphs and all those things. And again, I'm trying to reduce redundancy. So what I ultimately ended up doing was I added a few things to this budget worksheet that are new this time around. And the main thing I added was run volume. Because as we talked about EMS billing, I think it's important for you guys to know the activity that we have on a month-to-month basis. And I think it's important to see the trends with transports because transports directly correlate to dollars. And when we talk about lost dollars, you know, that when transports are down, dollars are down. So that's been incorporated into the bottom of this sheet. But then I went back to my old favorite right here. So we're looking at our overall revenue year to date, our revenue by account. So we have our levied funds, we have our EMS billing, our firefighter salaries, our payroll, where we're at. Now, again, interesting, this looks really low. The green is what we've spent, the red is what's budgeted. But remember, our firefighter salaries are split between 2 accounts. It's EMS and it's fire. So this is the fire side, and you'll see the EMS side is pretty robust when we get there. Our overall expenses, just like we used to have in that old worksheet, our vehicle maintenance fund, our general fund, our fuel fund, and then we've got the shared EMS money. So again, we've used a lot of our EMS money year to date for salaries, which is why that general fund is such a low number. Here's where Joanne was talking about. We started using some additional funding for COVID type materials. We do plan on spending the balance of that account. Currently, our PPE is in very good shape. We've got 120 gallons of sanitizer that we're in great shape. Our sprayers that we ordered are due to be delivered here in the next month or so, which is going to keep us very well protected. We're still going to have some of that CARES money left over, and the goal is we had Ebola kits, which really helped us with this pandemic. So our goal, once these prices stabilize a little bit, will be to rebuild that stock and to create the pandemic kit, I guess we'll call it for now. And we'll hope the next time this happens that goggles and N95 masks and gowns are what's needed and not, you know, shoe covers and knee boots and whatever else. So this is just that same type of report, different format. It's on a single page, gives you kind of an overview of our run volume over a 3-year period of time. And I think with some of the newer board members, this shows that while our numbers are up and down, we're pretty consistently about 250 runs a month. And then here are the EMS transports. And the only reason I put this, I could go back to June of 17 or June of 18. What I wanted you to see is how this curve began to happen here as COVID hit. So that curve also, that transport curve that we see declining directly correlates to some of that funding. So currently I'm guessing we're going to be $10,000 to $12,000 under for the month in EMS billing. Again, we'll have to wait and see how that washes out in the end. It's awful early to premature to try to predict where we're going to be. And then this is just a look at the last 12 months of our EMS billing. The red shows our billing, the green shows our actual collection. And again, this goes from left to right. So you can kind of see over the last 2 or 3, you know, May you can't really count because we're in May, but you can see in March and April our numbers were down.
Question for you, Chief. This is Mark Vince. Could you go back one little bit, one page there, right there, where you're dropping down? Now, the question I have for you, is this because of our not doing as much work with the nursing homes and critical care facilities?
It has to do with, yeah, I will tell you, you know, I've been hard on the nursing homes, and I will tell you through this pandemic, they have done a pretty good job. We've not been there nearly as much as we normally are, but I will tell you our volume overall was impacted. And we've still had a significant number of runs, but we've also had a lot of sign-offs because there are a lot of people that don't want to go to the hospital right now.
Okay. So that,
if you go back up, Mr. Best, sorry to interrupt. If you go back up and you look where the blue line is on this graph, the run volume, you can see our volume has pretty much stayed consistent to where we were last year.
correct.
People just aren't wanting to go to the hospital.
Okay. All right. Well, I was just wondering why the volume was down, and then my next question was, you know, is this, you know, per our conversations with those entities that were not doing the things that we thought they should? Is that one of the reasons, because of those conversations previously?
I'm hoping that had something to do with it. I am also happy to report there was one facility that had 3 bariatric patients, the largest one being just over 1,000 pounds. We did go meet with them on a couple of different occasions because that's dangerous. In the last conversation I had with them, I basically said, you know, if you're going to call us to transport, you're going to have to buy the equipment that we need to move them. And I think the burden on the staff got to them to the point where now I'm glad to tell you that there are 0 bariatric patients there. I think, you know, a 1,000-pound patient isn't just hard on a 911 squad. It's hard on the nurses and the aides that have to provide day-to-day care.
Well, sure. And then the only question I have, you said that this drive or this report was already on drive or will be on drive?
It is on the drive now under the chief's report. I'm just showing it to you now because I apologize it got on there this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anybody about this? Does this look like it will work instead of me making that separate page and have? Yes.
Very well put together, very explanatory. I mean, it's there. I mean, I have no problem with it, and I want to thank you for the hard job you did. It makes it a lot easier, and we don't need all the extra.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Chief, I'm okay with it too. I like the charts and graphs. It's pretty simplistic, but yet it shows exactly what's going on. So I'm good with it.
Well, and all I essentially did was I made my Excel spreadsheet create them. So now I don't have to take numbers from one sheet and transfer it into another sheet. It's kind of redundant. So format's a little bit different. The same information is there. And if there's other things that you guys are interested in, there are some other smaller accounts that I didn't include. I'm trying to look at manageable funds. There are some things that we have little control over, like dispatching, you know, the backbone. We have contractual cost, and to me, unless there's some variation to that cost, it's really kind of foolish to report on something that we can't fix. So that's the first one. A couple other things I want to go over with you, then I'll show you the last sheet. I want to recognize some anniversaries. May, we have Pat Davis, who's completed 27 years of service. Scott Wells, 27 years of service. Captain Meister, Justin Meister, 19 years. Firefighters Wema, 14 years. And firefighters Kalen and Newer both completed 8 years. Talked a little bit about the budget already. Vehicles, I talked to Captain Sopko, and Captain Sopko, if I'm incorrect, let me know. But the fire engine, the new engine, is still on schedule to be completed at the factory, or at the factory on June 11th. It will then need to go to the dealer to have some of the final touches, the mounting brackets and some things added. But I think it's a good goal to try to hopefully have this thing here by the end of June. Again, we'll see how much time it's going to take for them at the dealer. Our new pickup truck that we ordered is in at Classic. I'm a little bit perplexed because right now we're waiting for the cap. I'm not sure why when we ordered the pickup, they didn't order the cap with it. But yeah, we're working on some pricing right now because it will need some striping and it'll need some lighting so that we have the 360-degree coverage as required by law. 2124, the other thing we need to start thinking about is 2124 is the old beast that we're going to try to surplus. It's a 1994, so it's 26 years old. I know initially our conversations were stripping the crap out of that thing, taking every bit and piece that we could. I just found out today that Trumbull Township may be interested in purchasing it as a fire engine. I have had no conversations with them yet. I think I haven't even talked to Stacy yet, but we would have something municipality to municipality. The two things that we absolutely have to take off of that fire engine are the Opticom light, which fortunately Trumbull Township I don't think needs it because I don't know that they have any stoplights. And the deck gun, which we're planning on putting on top of the new engine. I think we need to talk to them and see what they're willing to pay for price, because I think once we strip that thing down, honestly, you're probably not looking at more than a $5,000 bill for that fire truck. So when we talk to them and see what they're willing to give, I think there'll be some discussions for the board to figure out, do we pull pieces parts off of there, or is there value in the pieces parts? Does the truck have more value as a whole? So I would imagine probably July or August, that'll be a conversation about surplus.
Two questions for you, Chief. This is Mark Vest.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so your price that you gave that you felt as a whole we could possibly get that was how much?
That we could get out of the fire engine?
Yes, giving it stated or going with Trumbull Township.
I'm thinking if we go to if we could get $10,000 out of Trumbull Township, I'd be thrilled to death. I went on Gov Deals today and was looking, and they're all over the place, but there are some of the trucks that are similar that are selling for about $6,000.
Okay. Yeah, well, they got shipping and moving and everything else if they decide to go that way. The other way is also, you know, not to get too far ahead. Yes, you may think that Trumbull is interested in there, but the trustees in that have a little more say than we do here. And I know there's been some problems in that area before with that happening. So perhaps some conversation with some of the political entities before you put too much muscle into this thing or too much effort into this to make sure they're going to be ones that want to play. Because if they want to spend the money, there's no sense in you going through all this.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in either case, the two pieces that we need to take off there probably have a $5,000 value. I mean, that the value in the truck is there, and that motor's probably got a lot of value if it wasn't in the truck. But so yeah, I just wanted to plant the seed that there may be some different options. I know initially it was strip it and get rid of it. There may be an option to take what we need off of it and sell it as a fire engine as is. So just kind of planting that seed.
I mean, like the Opticom, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
That Opticon is what, like $2,500, Chief?
I think they're at least that much. Captain Sopko, do you know right off the top of your head?
Not without looking, but they're pretty pricey.
Yeah. Yeah.
The gun also would be what, 25 or?
Yeah, that deck gun's probably $2,000 or $2,500. If it's got fire written on it, it's expensive.
Right.
One of the other things that I wanted to bring up for your guys' consideration is I know the county's talking about opening their offices June 1st. I just wanted to make sure that we as the fire district tried to work together and coordinate with the village and township as to how they're going to proceed moving forward, whether they're going to open, not open. I think it behooves us to be in line with both agencies that we affiliate with. Let's see. Other happenings, vehicle maintenance is underway right now. We're putting tires, brakes, batteries. We just fried a battery in one of the quads, so that's been taken care of. So you'll be seeing some bills coming in next month. Inspections, Inspector Salamosi is back at work, starting to hit some of the outdoor and open businesses. I talked to him today. He said he estimates that he's about 50 inspections short of completing the cycle for the year of all the businesses. Captain Sopko, I don't know whether you want to add anything with that.
No, I know he's back up to pretty much his normal pace, or will be within the next week, so he should be on pace to get everything done.
The last thing that I have is I got one more any questions about any of that I should ask before I move on? Okay. The last thing that I wanted to show you guys, because I think it's important for you to be aware as well, is, you know, me and my OCD. I've been paying a lot of attention to COVID, as you can imagine. I wanted to put some things into perspective. I know I've sent these out to you before. You know, there's a lot of pressure going in every different direction. I see that Judge Lucci just made a big decision that's probably going to get some notoriety in Lake County. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to just kind of show you guys where we're at with COVID, where we're at with Madison and Lake County. And the goal was to try to put it into perspective, because I'm sure you're probably getting questions. So all this data, all this information is right from the Ohio Department of Health COVID dashboard. If you look at that, you can download an Excel spreadsheet that has all the information. And that's what I did. And what I wanted to do is really try to put into perspective, like, what are we dealing with? So this first slide, the first piece here is just infection rate by week from a state, local, and county perspective. And if you look over here, you obviously have Ohio, right? And what I was curious about is, how does Lake County and Madison's trend compare to the state of Ohio? And all I did is I took the total cases and I factored in the percentage of total that each of these are. And what I wanted you to see, I thought was interesting, is in Madison, you know, not that we had big numbers, but it looks like we really had our big spike about 6 to 7 weeks ago. If you look at Lake County in the green, Lake County was kind of in line with us. The state looks like their peak was about 4 to 5 weeks ago. In either case, from left to right, this is last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And in either case, you can see which side of this curve we're on. Okay. This next slide just looks at overall cases by week. And again, I'm not sure, you know, I try to keep my mouth shut on Facebook and social media as much as I can. But I'm not sure whether everybody's got a grasp in the numbers when they talk about these numbers, because I've been a pain in Commissioner Graham's behind, because I don't like the way they're reporting, because I feel like sometimes it doesn't give us the truth, or it doesn't give us a true look, I should say. So these are cases by week in Ohio, again, Lake County and Madison. And this just goes to show you again, you know, in Madison, 6 to 7 weeks out, we had that peak like we talked about. And the peak number for Madison was 10 cases. In Lake County, the peak was 7 to 8 weeks ago. And in both those cases, we were talking about 40 cases per week. So again, 10 cases out of 23,000 people in Madison, 40 cases out of 230,000 people in Lake County. And then this big peak right here in Ohio, what's interesting is if you look at the data, the one thing that you may recall that made the news was when they found all those prisoners that were positive. This was the week. This was the week that all those folks were reported. Again, hospitalization rate, you can look here. I don't have Madison's data, but here you can see again, Lake County peaked 6 to 7 weeks ago. Everything's on the downhill slide. If you look at deaths by week, you know, Lake County again was 6 to 7 weeks ago. We had a little spike, about 2 to 3 weeks ago, but you have to understand we only had 9 deaths. That little spike 2 to 3 weeks ago was 2 people. And you can also see that the mortality rate, we're on the downhill slide of that mortality rate, even in the state of Ohio. Infection rate based on population. Again, when you look at the total number of infections, which was 226 in Lake County, this was as of Monday the 18th. This isn't deaths, hospitalizations. This is 0.1% of Lake County, the Lake County population were infected. This is the one that we all should look at and think about. So what I was really curious about is cases versus death versus hospitalization. So we keep talking about we need to protect everybody, and I think this shows who we need to really protect. So people under the age of 50 and under accounted for 50% of the total cases, about 20% of the total hospitalizations, and 2.5% of the total deaths. People over the age of 70 accounted for about 22% of the total, let me make sure I got that number right. Yes, 20.1% of the total cases, 70 and older, but they accounted for 77% of the death. So I just put this here because, again, who's at risk? People 70 and older. The nice part is the majority of our firefighters are in that 50 and less. Let's just call it 60 and less. So the nice part is, while we're at risk of potentially being infected, the survivability for people in our age range is very good. I just thought that was kind of an interesting number because this is why we really need to watch the nursing homes. This is why we need to make sure we take care of the elderly population. This is one of the reasons why, you know, the majority of our calls seem to be the elderly. And this is one of the things over here on the right that the elderly have been aware of. They're at risk. And this is one of the reasons why they don't want to get hospitalized, because the outcomes aren't great. And then this is just cases by age range. And again, it's just a different way of looking at the numbers. But this is also in your in the folder. I think as elected officials and us as public safety, we all need to really understand what these numbers are, because we're the people that are going to be asked questions, and it's really easy to give bad information. You know, I had a conversation with Mr. Gautner today, and you know what? The line I like is facts don't care about your feelings. These are the facts. This is ODH data. And I guess it's just a tool to empower you as board members and community leaders if you're questioned. So, you know, I like numbers. There's a whole bunch of them there. I hope it makes sense for you to look at. And that is all I have for my report.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for Chief?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank the chief for putting that together. That was an excellent graphs. It really tells the tale, and there's so many people out there who have a different impression of what's going on, and numbers don't lie. And other than the fact, I think one of the things that kind of makes me a little bit leery of the numbers, and not the chief's numbers, but the ones that you keep hearing on TV, is so many people are now infected with the COVID-19 virus, but what they don't tell you is, you know, they just keep adding to the number from day one. How many of those? I think the number I saw today somewhere was like 23,000 people in Ohio have it, but how many of those people have already recovered? And that's the one thing they never tell you. And I think it's very misleading to the public.
Well, as of Monday, it was 28,454.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if you look at that website, the age range of people infected with COVID are 0 to 108. And I don't know if you all saw yesterday, John Glenn's widow passed away at 100 years old, and she passed away due to complications of COVID.
Chief, I want to also thank you. A job well done again, and very self-explanatory. And we'll just have to go over it. And I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chief. one question for the chief. This is Mark Vest.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the graph that you just showed, is that in your report?
If you look in the board folder under Chief's report, you'll see COVID.
Okay, gotcha. Is that where that's at?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And-
yeah, I'm flipping through it right now. That's what I was looking for.
And please feel free to share that. That is facts. That is data from ODH. And I do agree with Mr. Gautner. I challenged the commissioner on the fact that we don't show recoveries because we just had a chiefs meeting, I think it was last Thursday, and they went over all the return to work criteria. So we know when everybody that gets sick can go back to work, but yet we don't know how to report on people that have recovered. And that was one of the things that I kind of was requesting from them, because I think that helps show that we're moving in the right direction.
Correct. Thank you.
Anything else for the chief?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay. Anything from the public portion?
Oh, if we got any public out there tonight, Mr. Chairman, maybe.
You never know. Okay. Any?
And Mr. Chairman, no emails either.
Thank you. Any closing board comments from anybody?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
This is Chief. Given the statistics that Todd just showed us, I think we as a board need to consider meeting together again like we did before, even at a safe distance. We're community leaders, and I think we should be leaders as far as getting back into the public. I don't think we should be hiding like Biden all summer. My opinion.
Oh, gosh.
I definitely like to hear some other, yeah.
I think we should at least give it consideration before the June meeting, for sure. If we can safely do it and still keep our social distancing, which we probably could do, even if we had to move the meeting back to Stanton Park, the acoustics there aren't the greatest, but it might be a good idea. I think you're going to see, and I was going to mention this anyways under my board comment. The chief touched on it briefly. If those of you have not seen it yet, Judge Eugene Lucci of Lake County Common Pleas Court today came out with a really interesting ruling that's going to get everybody in the country's attention. And if you haven't seen that, go to Channel 5's website. It's probably been on the news tonight. But he basically, if you're aware that the local gyms and what have you, it filed a class action lawsuit against the state of Ohio because they were not being allowed to open up. And Judge Lucci basically ruled that the state health director, Dr. Acton, had no statutory authority to do what she did and shut the whole state down the way she did. And basically the judge's ruling said that the gyms could basically open up immediately. They weren't supposed to open up till 26, but I think you're gonna see a whole lot about what Judge Lucci ruled on today, and it'll probably make national news. And I think he did the right thing. He kind of stepped up to the plate and said, "Wait a minute, this lady can't do what she's doing. There's no statutory authority for her to do what she's doing." So you get a chance, check that out, because no doubt it's going to be on Fox News and CNN.
And Mr. Lehman, to your point, I think with everything beginning to open, if some predictions are true, we may see a spike after the 1st of June. I think a wait and see, if some of the pundits are correct, we're going to see a humongous jump in cases because of the opening of businesses. And I would kind of agree with Mr. Gautner. My suggestion is let's see what the data says in the first week or so of June. If it's going the other way, we know there may be a problem. If we haven't moved, then I think that we're in good shape.
I agree with you, Chief. I feel the same way you do.
Good point. You
Mr. Best, when do you open, or have you?
I am open. I opened last Friday. And we're taking the precautionary measures, but if I was to take a pulse of the public right now, most of the public believes that our governor and otherwise have overplayed their hand. But that's his public opinion. That doesn't make it factual. And that's basically it. I'm just I'm open. I'm ready for business. So there we are. Thank you.
And I might add, I got a really nice haircut from you this morning. So
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think I would like to wait at least the next, week or two and see what's going on before we make that decision. I don't know if Stacy's what her opinion is on it, or if we have to take this to a vote, or when we go back, or what.
Well, I mean, right now, I mean, we have it set so that they happen in this fashion. And then if we decide that things change, then obviously we have to give the proper notice to the public as to how we're going to hold the meeting and where it's going to be. So as long as we provide the notice, we're going to be okay. And I think it's well within reason to do the wait and see approach to see what the data shows, and just in the name of safety, I guess.
Okay.
I agree. I don't want to rush into anything and anybody gets sick.
Exactly.
Stacy, let's say we decide that the data is down first or second week of June. Can we as a board instruct the chief individually that, yeah, we can go ahead and meet all together again, or is that in violation of the sunshine law?
I have to specifically, just because of all of the changes that have been made recently and the basically release of some of those to allow a meeting like this to happen. But I know that the chairman has the ability to be able to set something like that. And if we have to convene quickly to be able to formally take a quick vote and set that meeting date and place and time, we can do it by a Zoom meeting or a Google Meets meeting, and I think we'll be okay within the requirements. So should be easy enough to accommodate and get where we need to be.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank
you.
I have a question for Stacy. This is Mark Vest.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question lies, it's either all or nothing. Either we're all virtual or we're all in person. There is no staggering one or the other, correct?
I mean, that is the preferred method, just because otherwise it's too difficult to make sure that people are participating at all times and that sort of thing. So my recommendation would be that we are present all either together in person or in this format.
Okay.
I think there is some room in there for someone to attend electronically if they can't come in or if they don't feel safe coming in. But we have to make sure then that that's still being recorded, that we're still showing who that person is and that they're attending virtually, and make sure that it's all within that same context of the meeting and being recorded for purposes of the public record.
Okay, very good. I say let's unmute everybody else. Let's see what happens.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing that we have to consider when we do resume is that we are, because it's a government building, going to have to require masks, where we may have to require some marking. I'm not sure. That's something we'll have to look at legally, what our requirements are when we open to the public. So we may need to have a law enforcement officer here to help enforce people wearing, there are just a lot of things that we'll have to look into in the next couple weeks.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Lee.
Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
I would like to, my opinion is that we stay virtual. That creates the fewest risk for the fire district.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Anyone else? Or is that everybody? Okay, I think we got everybody's opinion on that. Was there anything else for the good of the meeting? Okay,
I don't have anything.
anything? Anybody?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make that
So
motion,
moved,
Mr. Chairman.
I believe it was Mr. Anderson, and then second,
Second, Mr. Wayman.
Mr. Wayman. And
Yeah.
roll call.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Gottner,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Vest,
Yes.
Mr. Wayman.
Yes.
Okay. What was the date on the next regular meeting?
June 17th at 7 p.m.
Okay. June 17th at 7 p.m. And at least right at the moment, we're still planning on a live stream on that.
Right.
Until further notice.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Everybody stay safe.
Time
Time,
is
Thanks,
8:07.
Eight-
I agree.
8:07 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Stacy.
Good to all.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, John.
Are you killing the stream, Sean? Okay. Good night.